I wasn't expecting to meet the love of my life during a mandatory evacuation drill, but the universe has its own twisted sense of humor. There I was, sweat trickling down my back in Stockton's merciless August heat, clutching my astrology shop's ledger to my chest, the one thing I'd grabbed in my what would you save in an emergency panic. "Sis is ridiculous," muttered a voice behind me as we were herded into the community center. "Any 5 degrees and they choose today for this drill?" I turned to find myself face to face with a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a business casual catalog. Pressed khakis, crisp blue button-down with rolled sleeves, and the kind of blonde ponytail that swung with precision. Her blue eyes landed on my pendant, and I watched the familiar micro-expression of judgment flash across her face. "Venus in retrograde," I explained, fingering the crystal. "Not the best day for community activities." She snorted. "Or maybe it's just poor planning by the city council and basic meteorology." Great. A scientist. They were always the worst, so desperate to explain away the magic of existence. "Olivia Sanchez," I said, extending my hand anyway. "My mother raised me with manners, even for skeptics." "Lindsay Baker," she replied, her handshake firm and brief. "Biochemistry department at Pacific." The volunteers directed us toward the same corner of the gymnasium, where we discovered the drill had been extended from 1 hour to 3, due to some bureaucratic snafu. Trapped with Professor Logic for 3 hours. Perfect. "Those crystals don't actually do anything, you know," Lindsay said after 20 minutes of tense silence, eyeing my necklace again. "I've reviewed the studies. Placebo effect at best." I smiled. 20 years of scientific training, and the best you can come up with is, rocks don't have magic powers? Groundbreaking stuff, Dr. Baker. Her cheeks flushed slightly, and damn if it wasn't attractive. "It's Professor, actually, and someone needs to speak up for reason. And someone needs to remember that humans understood the universe for thousands of years before your precious scientific method." Our bickering continued through hour 2. The rescue scenario organizers handed out water bottles, and we both reached for the last cold one simultaneously. Her fingers brushed against mine, and I felt an electric current race up my arm that had nothing to do with static electricity and everything to do with unexpected chemistry. She felt it too. I could tell by how quickly she pulled her hand back, those blue eyes widening slightly. "Take it," she said, voice suddenly softer. "We could share," I heard myself suggesting, instantly regretting how intimate it sounded. The corner of her mouth quirked up, the first almost smile I'd seen from her. "Afraid I'll contaminate it with my scientific rationalism?" "I think I can risk it," I replied, uncapping the bottle and taking a sip before passing it to her. Our fingers brushed again during the exchange, and this time, neither of us pretended not to notice. Hours later, when the drill finally ended, I found myself lingering, reluctant to say goodbye to this infuriating, fascinating woman. "Well," Lindsay said, standing awkwardly by the exit, "I hope you don't have to save too many planets from retrograde after this waste of an afternoon." I laughed despite myself. "And I hope your test tubes don't miss you too much, Professor." She hesitated, then pulled out a business card. "If you ever want to see what real research looks like, give me a call. I could show you around the lab." As I watched her walk away, card clutched in my hand, I had the strangest feeling that the stars had just rearranged themselves, and for once, I hadn't seen it coming. I twirled Lindsay's business card between my fingers for 3 days, before finally admitting to myself that I was going to use it. There was something about her I couldn't shake. That irritating logical mind paired with those electric blue eyes that seemed to see right through my carefully constructed spiritual facade. "You're actually going to the science building?" Miguel asked as I rearranged crystal displays in my shop. "You hate those academic types." "Market research," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Know thy enemy and all that." "Uh-huh," Miguel smirked, not fooled for a second. "That's why you changed outfits 3 times this morning." I threw a cloth at him. "Just watch the shop." The university campus buzzed with fall semester energy. I felt out of place with my flaming red hair and flowing emerald dress among the backpacks and hoodies. The science building was all glass and steel, cold, logical architecture that matched its inhabitants' worldview. After some wandering, I found Lindsay's lab. Through the window, I could see her bent over a microscope, blonde hair tied back, completely absorbed in her work. Something about her concentration made my stomach flip. She looked up suddenly, as if sensing my presence, and her eyes widened in surprise. Olivia? She pulled open the door. Did you get lost on your way to a tarot convention? Cute, I replied. No, I came to see what real research looks like. Your invitation, remember? She seemed genuinely flustered. I didn't think you'd actually come. Disappointed? Surprised, she corrected, but there was a hint of something else in her voice. Come in. Lindsay showed me around her lab with the pride of someone showing off their home. I didn't understand half the equipment she explained, but her passion was undeniable and strangely attractive. I'm working on cellular regeneration pathways, she explained, pointing to incomprehensible charts. If we can understand how cells communicate during healing, you can help people recover from injuries faster, I finished. She looked impressed. Exactly. The body's natural healing processes have been my study for years too, I said, just from a different angle. Our conversation was interrupted by a man barging into the lab. Lindsay, the department meeting starts in... He stopped, eyeing me suspiciously. Who's this? Jordan, this is Olivia. She runs the astrology shop downtown. His expression turned dismissive instantly. Playing tour guide to the locals now? Actually, I cut in before Lindsay could respond. I'm here to interview Professor Baker for my podcast. We're exploring the tension between scientific and metaphysical approaches to understanding human experience. Lindsay's eyebrows shot up, but she recovered quickly. Right, I agreed to this last week. Jordan looked between us, clearly not buying it. Whatever, meeting, 5 minutes. He left with a final skeptical glance. You don't have a podcast, Lindsay said once he was gone. Do now, I grinned. Unless you'd rather admit you're fraternizing with the enemy? That got a reluctant smile. Fine. 1 interview. 3 days later, Lindsay sat across from me in my shop after hours, a borrowed microphone between us, looking both fascinated and uncomfortable amid the crystals and star charts. So, Professor Baker, what makes you so certain the universe can be explained solely through the lens of measurable phenomena? Evidence, she replied confidently. Repeatable results. The scientific method has advanced human understanding more in 400 years than all previous systems combined. Yet science still can't explain consciousness, or why we fall in love with certain people and not others. We're getting closer to understanding brain chemistry. You were born during a solar eclipse, I interrupted, watching her carefully. Your mother had complications. You weren't expected to survive your first night. Lindsay froze, color draining from her face. How could you possibly know that? The same way I know you broke your right wrist at age 9 falling from an apple tree, and that you've never told anyone about the recurring dream where you're swimming in space. She stared at me, scientific certainty crumbling before my eyes. That's impossible. I reached across the table and took her hand. There are more things in heaven and earth, Professor, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Her fingers trembled slightly in mine. How did you do that? I smiled. Maybe there's room in that brilliant mind for a little mystery after all. I was closing up shop, arranging tomorrow's crystal display when the bell jingled unexpectedly. Lindsay stood in the doorway, clutching 2 coffee cups and looking like she'd been arguing with herself the entire way here. We're closed, I said, but couldn't help smiling. I know. She stepped inside anyway, pushing one of the cups toward me. Peace offering, or research material. I haven't decided yet. I accepted the coffee, our fingers brushing momentarily. Research? I've been thinking about our interview. She wandered around my shop, examining star charts with newfound curiosity. The things you knew about me, I've been trying to rationalize it. And I can't. The admission seemed physically painful for her. I've checked social media, public records, everything. There's no way you could have known about the apple tree. I never even told my parents how it really happened. I sipped my coffee. Vanilla latte, my favorite. Had I mentioned that to her? Some things can't be explained by research, Lindsay. So I'm supposed to just accept that you're psychic? She shook her head, but there was less skepticism in her voice than before. I prefer intuitive practitioner of cosmic arts, I teased. Lindsay laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face. God, you're infuriating. Part of my charm. She stepped closer. I shouldn't be here. Yet, here you are. Science can't explain everything, she said quietly, like she was admitting a secret. Especially not why I can't stop thinking about you. My heart stuttered. That's a significant research finding, Professor. So I thought, maybe... If you're not busy, Lindsay ran a hand through her blonde hair nervously. But an university observatory is open tonight. Clear skies, I have access. 2 hours later, we lay side by side on a blanket on the observatory roof, the massive telescope forgotten behind us as we gazed up at the unfiltered night sky. The autumn air carried a slight chill, giving me an excuse to edge closer to her warmth. That's Andromeda, I said, pointing upward. The chained woman. Lindsay traced the constellation with her finger. I've always known the classifications, the distances, the chemical compositions, but never the stories. The myths are the best part. I shifted onto my side, propping myself up on my elbow to look at her. Andromeda was sacrificed to a sea monster, chained to coastal rocks by her own parents. Lovely family. But Perseus saw her and fell instantly in love. He slew the monster and broke her chains. Lindsay turned to face me, our faces now inches apart. Is that what your charts say about me, that I need rescuing from the monster of rational thought? Oh, no, I whispered. And your chart says you're the rescuer, a natural protector who's afraid of needing protection herself. Her eyes searched mine. And what does your chart say about us, together? That we're impossible. My hand found hers on the blanket, fire and water, intuition and logic. Maybe impossible is worth exploring. A streak of light blazed across the sky above us, and Lindsay gasped. Make a wish, I whispered. But instead of looking up, her eyes stayed fixed on me. Then her hand was in my hair, pulling me closer with surprising urgency. When our lips met, the stars behind my closed eyelids rivaled those in the sky. Her mouth was soft but demanding, her scientist's precision evident in how thoroughly she explored me. I melted into her, matching her intensity. All the tension and opposition between us transformed into a different kind of energy, electric and unleashed. We broke apart breathless, the cool night air doing nothing to calm the heat between us. Lindsay's hand trembled slightly as she traced my cheekbone. Was that in your predictions? She asked, voice husky. The rest of the night became a blur of sensation, her hands learning the topography of my body with scientific dedication, my fingers mapping her reactions like plotting stars in a new constellation. We moved against each other with increasing urgency, investigation giving way to instinct. I can't believe this is happening, Lindsay whispered against my neck as we came undone beneath the watchful eyes of the universe. Hours later, wrapped in the blanket and each other, she pointed to another shooting star. Think the cosmos approves? I kissed her again, slower this time. The stars don't judge, Lindsay. They just witness. The next 3 weeks were a celestial whirlwind. Lindsay and I fell into each other's orbits so completely that time seemed to bend around us. My skeptical scientist now spent her lunch breaks rushing across town to my shop, often barely speaking before pulling me into the back room, where star charts and inventory sheets were quickly forgotten. I have a meeting in 40 minutes, she'd murmur against my neck, already unbuttoning my blouse with those precise, deliberate fingers. That's plenty of time, I'd reply, pulling her closer. On Tuesday, I was arranging a new shipment of moonstone when the shop bell jingled. Lindsay appeared, looking gloriously disheveled despite her professional attire. Emergency consultation, she announced to Miguel with mock seriousness. Cosmic alignment issues. Miguel rolled his eyes as I led her to my office. Third emergency this week. Must be Mercury retrograde. The moment the door closed, Lindsay had me pressed against it. I can't stop thinking about you, she confessed between kisses. It's affecting my work. Jordan asked why I was smiling at cell cultures this morning. The horror, I teased, running my hands through her blonde hair. A scientist experiencing joy. We moved to the velvet reading couch where so many fortunes had been told, adding our own magic to its history. Afterward, lying in a tangle of limbs and half-removed clothing, Lindsay traced the tattoo of Orion's belt across my ribs. I had a reputation, you know, she said softly. The ice queen of the science department, completely dedicated to work. And now? Now I'm sneaking away like a teenager and counting the minutes until I can see you again. She sighed dramatically. You've ruined me. Expanded your horizons, I corrected, kissing her forehead. Our bubble burst the next day when Jordan appeared at Lindsay's lab door while I was bringing her lunch. A peace offering after a minor morning argument about whether dreams could predict the future. "Well, this explains a lot," he said, eyes narrowing at the sight of me perched on Lindsay's desk. "The missed meetings, the distraction, the decline in your work quality." Lindsay straightened immediately. "My work hasn't suffered, Jordan. The Mendoza calculations were due yesterday," he snapped. "The grant committee is waiting." The color drained from Lindsay's face. "I thought that was next week." "Clearly your mind is elsewhere." His gaze slid to me with undisguised disdain. Playing with crystals instead of focusing on actual science? I felt Lindsay tense beside me, ready to defend herself, or perhaps me. I squeezed her hand in warning. This wasn't my battle. "I'll have them done by tonight," she promised. Professional mask sliding back into place. After Jordan left, she collapsed into her chair. "He's right. I've been distracted." "Hey," I tilted her chin up. "You're allowed to have a life beyond this lab. Not if I want tenure. Not if I want my research funded." She looked torn. "This project could help thousands of people, Olivia." I kissed her quickly. "Then finish your calculations, Professor. I'm not going anywhere." But things shifted after that. Lindsay started setting boundaries, no more lunchtime visits, strict evening schedules. I felt her pulling away, retreating behind her scientific walls. The late October weather turned suddenly cold, matching the chill I feared was growing between us. Then came the thunderstorm, rare for Stockton this time of year. I was closing up shop when Lindsay appeared in the doorway, soaked to the skin, blonde hair plastered to her face. "What are you doing here?" I asked, rushing to grab a towel. "You're drenched." "Jordan offered me lead position on the cellular regeneration study," she said, water dripping onto my wooden floors. My heart sank. "That's great. When do you leave?" I turned it down. Her blue eyes locked on mine, vulnerable and certain all at once. "But your career—" "I realized something," she interrupted, stepping closer despite her dripping clothes. "Science is about observation. And what I've observed is that I'm happier with you than I've ever been in my life. Lindsay—" "I love you, Olivia," she said, the words hanging between us like a constellation I'd been waiting my whole life to see. "I love your ridiculous crystals and your impossible insights and the way you challenge everything I thought I knew." I pulled her to me, not caring about my now soaking dress. "I love you too," I whispered against her lips. "The stars told me you were coming, you know." She laughed against my mouth. "Of course they did." We kissed in the doorway of my shop, rain still pouring around us, two opposing forces finding perfect balance in each other's arms. 3 months. 90 days of loving Lindsay Baker had transformed my entire universe. Tonight was our anniversary, and I'd made reservations at the upscale Italian place where we'd had our first official date. I checked my makeup in the rearview mirror, excited to give Lindsay the handcrafted silver constellation pendant I'd commissioned. The rain that had been threatening all day finally broke loose, pelting my windshield as I navigated through Stockton's evening traffic. My phone buzzed with Lindsay's text running 5 minutes late. "Don't start without me. Love you." I smiled, typing back quickly. "Drive safe. Rain getting worse." She was waiting under the university's covered entrance when I pulled up, dashing through the downpour to my car with a folder clutched protectively under her jacket. Her cheeks were flushed, eyes bright with excitement. "Sorry," she said, leaning over to kiss me. "I had to finish something to show you tonight. It's worth the wait, I promise." "Mysterious," I teased, pulling back into traffic. "Does it involve test tubes?" "Actually, it's—" Lindsay's words cut off as her eyes widened. "Olivia, look out!" Everything happened in horrifying slow motion. The truck running the red light, my desperate swerve, the sickening feeling of tires losing traction on wet asphalt. I remember reaching for Lindsay, our fingers almost touching before the world tilted and metal screamed against metal. Then darkness. I woke to the rhythmic beeping of hospital monitors and the smell of antiseptic. My body felt like one massive bruise, but I could move my fingers, my toes. A doctor I didn't recognize stood over me, checking the machines. "Lindsay," I croaked, my throat raw. "Where's Lindsay?" The doctor, her name tag read Dr. Wright, placed a gentle hand on my arm. "Miss Sanchez, you've been in an accident. You have minor injuries, concussion, bruised ribs, some cuts requiring stitches. You're going to be fine." "Lindsay," I repeated, panic rising. She was with me. Lindsay Baker. Dr. Wright's expression shifted. Miss Baker is in stable condition. She suffered head trauma that required surgery to relieve pressure on her brain. I need to see her. I tried to sit up but fell back, dizzy with pain. Once you need to rest. And there's something you should know before. Please, I begged. I need to see her. Dr. Wright eventually relented, helping me into a wheelchair. Every movement hurt, but nothing compared to the pain of uncertainty squeezing my chest. We entered a quiet room where Lindsay lay, looking impossibly small among the machines. Her beautiful blonde hair had been partially shaved for surgery. A stark white bandage wrapped around her head. I reached for her hand, relief flooding me when I felt its warmth. She's going to wake up, right? I asked. We believe so. The surgery was successful, but with head injuries, there can be complications. What kind of complications? Dr. Wright hesitated. Memory issues are common, usually temporary. 2 days later, I was sitting by Lindsay's bed when her eyes fluttered open. Those familiar blue eyes found mine, and I nearly wept with relief. Aunt Lindsay, I whispered. Thank the stars. You're back. She blinked slowly, confusion creasing her brow. Where am I? Sen Hospital. We were in an accident. I squeezed her hand. But you're okay now. We're okay. She looked down at our joined hands, then back to my face with growing bewilderment. I'm sorry, but do I know you? The world stopped spinning. Lindsay, it's me, Olivia. She pulled her hand away carefully. I'm sorry, I don't remember you. Dr. Wright confirmed what my heart already knew. Lindsay had retrograde amnesia. She remembered her work, her colleagues, her life before the evacuation drill. But the past 3 months, everything about us had been wiped away. Will she remember eventually? I asked, choking back tears. It's possible. The brain is resilient. Familiar settings, routines, photographs might trigger recognition. But, Doctor? Wright placed a cautious hand on my shoulder. You shouldn't force it. That could cause more harm than good. I stood in Lindsay's hospital room later that day, a stranger to the woman I loved. She looked at me with polite interest, nothing more. So we're dating? She asked, the concept seemingly impossible to her. For 3 months, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. We were celebrating our anniversary when the accident happened. Lindsay stared out the window, processing. I'm sorry, this must be awful for you. I just don't remember any of it. I wanted to scream, to make her remember the way she kissed me under the stars, the way she whispered my name when we made love, the way she'd chosen me over her precious research. Instead, I swallowed my pain and forced a smile. It's okay, I lied. You focus on getting better. As I walked out of her hospital room, I felt the universe laughing at my presumption. I, who claimed to read the stars, had never seen this devastation coming. Lindsay returned to work 2 weeks after the accident, against Dr. Wright's recommendations. When my brain functions perfectly fine, she insisted during her final checkup, which I'd awkwardly attended at Dr. Wright's request. My research can't wait indefinitely. I'd taken to haunting the edges of Lindsay's life like a ghost, present but unseen. I reopened my shop but found myself constantly glancing out the window toward the university, wondering what she was doing, if she was thinking of me at all. Some days, I'd time my walks to cross paths with her, a casual encounter between strangers who had once known every inch of each other's bodies. She'd smile politely, sometimes stop for brief small talk, but her eyes held none of the warmth they once did when looking at me. Still, nothing? Miguel asked one afternoon, watching me stare forlornly out the window. She walked right past the shop yesterday, I said. Didn't even glance inside. Maybe it's time to let go, Olivia. His voice was gentle. Move on. I shook my head. You don't understand. What we had was real. It was written in the stars. This is just a cosmic test. But as days stretched into weeks, doubt crept in. Maybe Miguel was right. Maybe the universe had decided we weren't meant to be after all. Then I spotted them through the university cafe window, Lindsay and Jordan, heads close together over lunch, laughing. My stomach clenched as I watched Jordan touch Lindsay's hand, and worse, as Lindsay didn't pull away. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I'd only gone into the cafe for coffee, but their voices carried. I'm just saying, Jordan was telling her. We were getting closer before the accident. You were finally seeing that we made sense together, professionally and personally. Lindsay looked thoughtful. I don't remember that. Of course not, Jordan said smoothly. But why else would I have been the first person you called from the hospital? That was a lie. I'd been with her when she woke up. Jordan hadn't visited until the following day. I gripped my coffee cup so hard the lid popped off. I suppose that makes sense, Lindsay said slowly. We do work well together. Exactly. And your astrology phase was already passing. You told me it was just a temporary fascination. I couldn't listen anymore. I fled the cafe, tears blurring my vision. That night, I did something I hadn't done since the accident. I cast Lindsay's chart again, searching the stars for guidance. The planetary alignment suggested hidden truths and obscured vision, deception in her path. Jordan, I whispered. He was taking advantage of her condition, rewriting our story to insert himself as the hero. For days I wrestled with what to do. Dr. Wright had warned against forcing memories, but could I really stand by while Jordan manipulated Lindsay? I finally decided on a middle path, a small reminder of our connection. Every morning I'd leave a cup of Lindsay's favorite coffee, vanilla latte with an extra shot and cinnamon, outside her lab door with no note, a ritual we'd established early in our relationship. 3 days into my coffee campaign, my phone rang with an unknown number. How did you know? Lindsay's voice, familiar yet distant. Know what? My heart raced. My coffee order. The specific way I like it. It's you leaving it, isn't it? Yes, I admitted. I thought I might help. Silence stretched between us. Then, Jordan says I should stop engaging with you. That it's preventing me from moving forward. And what do you think? I asked, holding my breath. I think... She paused. I think there's a gap in my life I can't explain, and when I saw you in the hallway yesterday, watching me find the coffee, something felt right, like déjà vu. Hope bloomed in my chest. Lindsay? But I don't remember you, she continued, her scientist's logic asserting itself. And Jordan's been nothing but supportive since the accident. He understands my work. He makes sense in my life. He's lying to you, I blurted, about how close you were before. About your feelings for astrology. Why would he do that? Because he's always wanted what we had. The line went quiet again. I need to figure this out on my own, Olivia. Please, no more coffee. The call ended, leaving me hollow. I threw myself into my charts and crystals, searching desperately for answers the stars seemed unwilling to give. Each night, I'd fall asleep clutching the constellation pendant I never got to give her, wondering if somewhere in Lindsay's damaged memory, a flicker of us still burned. I had the dream again, Lindsay said, standing in my shop doorway one rainy Tuesday morning, nearly 2 months after the accident. I froze, crystal pendant dangling from my fingers. The shop was empty except for us, early morning quiet broken only by the gentle music playing from my speakers. What dream? Red hair, green eyes, watching stars from somewhere high up. She stepped inside, looking uncomfortable but determined. I wake up feeling, I don't know, like I've lost something important. My heart hammered against my ribs. Dreams can be significant. So I've been told. Lindsay wandered around my shop, touching crystals with hesitant fingers. Jordan says they're just random neural firings, but they feel so real. I watched her drift through my space, longing to reach for her. What brings you here today, besides the dreams? Lindsay turned, squaring her shoulders like she was about to conduct a difficult experiment. I'd like a reading. Out of scientific curiosity, she added quickly. Scientific curiosity, I repeated, unable to hide my smile. Of course. I led her to my reading table, the same one where we'd sat for her interview months ago. The same one where, later, we'd pushed aside tarot cards to make room for more urgent explorations of each other. My cheeks warmed at the memory. I'll need your hand, I said, setting out my tarot deck. Lindsay hesitated before extending her palm across the table. When our skin touched, I felt her subtle intake of breath. Something flickered behind her eyes. Confusion, recognition, I couldn't tell. One Thar, lifeline is unusually clear, I said softly, tracing the crease in her palm. Strong-willed, determined. But here, I touched a point where the line forked slightly. A moment of division. 2 paths. Lindsay stared at our joined hands. I keep having these moments, flashes of familiarity I can't place, especially around you. I swallowed hard. That could be significant. Or neurological misfiring, she countered, but her fingers curled around mine. Jordan says, "Let's leave Jordan out of this reading," I interrupted gently. "Just focus on what you feel." I laid out the tarot cards, the tower appearing prominently. Sudden change, revelation. The Two of Cups in reverse, love interrupted, and the star, hope, faith, purpose. Lindsay watched with scientific intensity, noting each card's position. "What does it mean?" she asked when I'd finished. "That you're standing at a crossroads. Your mind might not remember, but your spirit does." I met her eyes across the table. "Some connections transcend memory, Lindsay." She withdrew her hand slowly. "I should go." Over the next week, I took a risk. Against Dr. Wright's advice, I began Operation Remember Us. I invited Lindsay to all the places that had been significant in our relationship, carefully framing each invitation as casual, friendly outings. The university observatory was first. "They're doing a public viewing night. Thought you might be interested." She agreed reluctantly, and we stood awkwardly beneath the same stars where we'd first kissed. Me aching with memory, her searching for something she couldn't name. "I've been here before," she said suddenly. "With you?" "Once," I admitted. "We watched meteors." Next was the botanical garden, where we'd spent a rainy Sunday naming plants with absurd scientific classifications of our own invention. Then the corner cafe, where Lindsay had first admitted she was falling for me. Each place seemed to stir something in her. Confusion, frustration, brief moments of almost recognition that faded as quickly as they came. "This isn't working," Lindsay said after our fourth outing, sitting across from me at the Italian restaurant where we should have celebrated our anniversary. "I keep thinking something will just click, but it doesn't. I'm sorry, Olivia." "Don't be sorry," I said, fighting tears. "Your brain is protecting itself." She looked at me with genuine sadness. "Jordan thinks—" "And I don't give a damn what Jordan thinks," I snapped, then immediately regretted it. "I'm sorry, it's just... he's not being honest with you about the past." Lindsay studied me for a long moment. "You really loved me, didn't you?" "Love," I corrected. Present tense. "And yes, more than anything." She reached across the table, briefly touching my hand, a gesture of compassion, not romance. I wish I could remember, but maybe we need to accept that what's lost is lost. I watched her leave the restaurant, taking my heart with her. That night, I cried until my crystals and star charts blurred before my eyes, wondering if some cosmic forces were simply too powerful to overcome. Lindsay's office was cluttered with research papers when I arrived, unexpected and uninvited. I had promised myself I would respect her decision to move on, but the stars had other plans. A client's reading had revealed deception so clearly that I couldn't ignore it, not when Lindsay's happiness hung in the balance. "Olivia." She looked up from her microscope, startled. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I need 5 minutes," I said, closing the door behind me. "Then I'll walk out of your life if that's what you want." She sighed, but gestured to the chair across from her desk. 5 minutes. I placed a folder between us, copies of texts and emails Jordan had sent me during the 3 months Lindsay and I were together. Messages warning me to stay away from Lindsay, claiming their professional partnership was destined for more. "What is this?" Lindsay asked, flipping through the pages. "Evidence that Jordan has been manipulating you. He wanted us apart long before your accident." As Lindsay read, her expression hardened. There was a printout of a particularly nasty email where Jordan had written, "Lindsay's just going through a phase with you. Once the grant approval comes through, she'll remember where her priorities lie." "These could be fabricated," she said, but doubt had crept into her voice. "Check the timestamps, the email headers. You're a scientist. Verify the evidence." Lindsay fell silent, methodically examining each page. Finally she looked up, confusion and anger warring on her face. "Why would he do this?" "Because he's always wanted your brilliance for himself. Professionally and personally." The office door opened without a knock. Jordan stood there, eyes narrowing at the sight of me. "Lindsay, we have that meeting with the board in 15... He stopped, seeing the papers spread across her desk. "What's going on here?" Lindsay held up one of the printouts. "Did you send this?" Jordan's face flushed. "She's obviously manipulating you. Those could be faked." The specific details about our research timeline couldn't be, Lindsay said slowly, her analytical mind connecting dots. And you've been feeding me stories about our relationship that don't add up. Like claiming you two were getting closer before the accident, I added. Or that I was just a temporary fascination. Jordan's expression hardened. Oh, so you can't believe anything she says. Her entire career is built on deception and magical thinking. Yet she's the one with evidence, Lindsay replied, standing up. I think you should leave, Jordan. You're making a mistake, he warned, but retreated under Lindsay's unflinching gaze. After he left, Lindsay turned to me. Thank you for showing me this, but it doesn't change the fact that I still don't remember us. My heart sank. I understand. 3 days later, Stockton issued an emergency evacuation order for our district due to an approaching wildfire. The university had been converted to a temporary shelter, the exact location where Lindsay and I had first met. I arrived early to help organize supplies, pushing aside the painful irony. The community center filled quickly with evacuees as smoke darkened the sky outside. I was helping an elderly couple find seating when a familiar voice called my name. Olivia! Lindsay stood across the crowded room, making her way toward me. She looked different somehow, more like herself, the self I had known. I didn't expect to see you here, I said. I volunteer during emergencies, she explained. Scientific background comes in handy during crises. We worked side by side for hours, falling into an easy rhythm that felt achingly familiar. As the afternoon wore on, evacuation officials announced that the fire had changed direction, cutting off the main exit route. We were safe in the shelter, but temporarily trapped until roads cleared. Ain't just like old times, I murmured, not meaning for Lindsay to hear. What? She asked, pausing in her inventory of medical supplies. Nothing. Just thinking aloud. We moved to a storage room to collect more blankets when a thunderous crash shook the building. Part of the ceiling collapsed near the doorway, trapping us inside with no immediate way out. Are you okay? Lindsay called through the dust cloud, her hand finding mine in the dimness. I'm fine. You? Not hurt, she coughed. They'll get us out soon. The structural supports are still intact. Emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow. Lindsay's face was inches from mine, our bodies pressed close in the confined space. My pendant, the one I'd never given her, had fallen from my pocket during the commotion, catching the light. Lindsay stared at it, transfixed. That constellation, Andromeda. Yes, I whispered. The chained woman who was set free. Something shifted in her eyes, recognition blooming like the first light of dawn. Her hand reached up, trembling slightly as she touched my face. Perseus saw her and fell instantly in love, she murmured, repeating the words I'd told her months ago on the observatory roof. Lindsay? My voice broke on her name. We were on the roof, she said slowly, looking at stars. You told me myths I never knew. Her eyes widened. The shooting star, we wished, we kissed. I couldn't breathe as memories visibly washed over her. You remember? Everything, she gasped, pulling me against her with desperate urgency. God, Olivia, I remember everything. Her mouth found mine with the precision of muscle memory, her body remembering what her mind had forgotten. We clung to each other in the dust and dim light, the collapsed ceiling forgotten as Lindsay rediscovered me with her hands, her lips, her whispered apologies. I'm so sorry, she murmured between kisses. I left you alone. I couldn't remember, but I felt it, this emptiness I couldn't explain. You're back now, I whispered against her lips. That's all that matters. Rebuilding our relationship after Lindsay's memory returned wasn't seamless, but it was beautiful in its imperfection. Some memories remained hazy, like viewing stars through cloud cover, while others came back with such vivid clarity they left her breathless. We took our time, rediscovering each other with the wonder of both new and familiar lovers. It's like reading a favorite book you'd forgotten you loved, Lindsay explained one evening as we lay tangled in my sheets. I know what's coming next, but I still feel the excitement of experiencing it. The university placed Jordan on administrative leave pending an investigation into research ethics violations. Apparently, his manipulations extended beyond just our relationship. Lindsay refocused on her cellular regeneration research, but with a surprising new angle. I've been thinking, she said one morning over breakfast, and about incorporating some of your intuitive methods into my research framework. I nearly choked on my tea. I'm sorry, did Dr. Lindsay Baker just suggest blending science with mysticism? She grinned. Not mysticism. Intuition. Human perception patterns. There's fascinating research about how intuitive processes can identify patterns faster than conscious analysis. So, you're saying my crystal ball might have some scientific merit? Don't push it. She laughed, but her eyes were serious. The accident changed me, Olivia. Living without memories but still feeling drawn to you. It made me realize there are connections that exist beyond what science can currently explain. 3 months later, Lindsay stood at a podium during the university's annual fundraising gala, her blonde hair swept up elegantly, confidence radiating from every inch of her. I watched from the audience, heart swelling with pride. Traditional research models have limited our understanding by dismissing unexplained phenomena, she told the crowd of academics and donors. My near-death experience showed me that science thrives when we embrace mystery rather than fear it. Murmurs rippled through the audience, some approving, others skeptical. With this new research direction, we're developing a framework that acknowledges the role of human intuition in scientific discovery. Her eyes found mine. I'd like to acknowledge my partner, Olivia Sanchez, whose perspective helped reshape my thinking. The spotlight followed her gesture, illuminating me briefly. I saw several faculty members exchange glances, but Lindsay continued undeterred. By bridging seemingly opposing viewpoints, we've already identified promising new pathways in cellular communication that traditional methods overlooked. After her presentation, skeptics crowded around with questions, but the university president himself approached to discuss funding opportunities. I slipped away to give her space, wandering onto the terrace where stars glittered above. Lindsay found me there an hour later, champagne flutes in hand. Sorry that took so long. Apparently suggesting that science might benefit from intuition is still controversial. And groundbreaking ideas always are. I accepted the glass. Professor Baker is shaking up the establishment. They'll come around, she said confidently. The preliminary results are too promising to ignore. We stood in comfortable silence, gazing upward at the same stars that had witnessed our first kiss. Tomorrow would bring challenges. Jordan's supporters were pushing back against Lindsay's new research direction, and my shop was facing a rent increase. But tonight belonged to us. I have something for you, Lindsay said suddenly, setting down her glass. She pulled a small velvet box from her clutch, and I'd been waiting for the right moment. Inside were 2 identical necklaces, each bearing a delicate silver constellation. Andromeda, I whispered, recognizing the pattern immediately. I had them made from the original pendant design you were going to give me before the accident, she explained, lifting one to place around my neck. I found the jeweler's sketch in your drawer. I fastened the matching piece around her neck, tears blurring my vision as the constellations caught the starlight. Not very scientific of you, I teased gently. Maybe not. She traced the pendant at my throat. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the most powerful forces in the universe can't be fully explained by either science or mysticism alone. So what explains us? I asked, drawing her closer. Logic or cosmic destiny? Lindsay's lips hovered just above mine, her blue eyes reflecting starlight. Does it matter? Whatever brought us together, kept bringing us together despite everything, it's more real than anything I've ever known. As we kissed beneath the constellations that had witnessed our journey, I realized we'd both been right all along. Lindsay's scientific precision and my cosmic intuition weren't opposing forces but complementary ones, like binary stars orbiting a common center, creating something more beautiful than either could alone. Our love story, written not just in the stars, but in the perfect precarious balance between reason and faith.